Good Monday evening, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center with this live update. Taking a look here at the Doppler radar imagery across the region right now. You do see some showers around, some thunderstorm activity, so we'll keep our eyes on that. I know there was a severe thunderstorm warning earlier as we looked up there toward the Cairo area in South Georgia, but not too big of a deal overall with this accident. We'll get to something that was a big deal and still is a big deal as we're looking up toward the Midwest, though, here in just a moment. But right here, right now, these temperatures across our viewing circle, you do see some different readings. We have 86 around Keystone. As we get over toward Tallahassee, you're seeing 85 right there in Leon County. Some areas in Georgia, though, a little bit cooler than that, even with some of that rainfall around. We see some 70s on the board there in toward parts of South Georgia. You see 76 there in toward Waycross. As we get closer toward Tipton, you're at 74 right now. So some rain-cooled air in toward those regions. As I look over the last 12 hours or so, you'll be able to see how much rain has fallen, and you get the idea of where that has occurred. It's South Georgia. I'll take the temperature off to clear things up a little bit. You'll be able to see as we're looking south of Albany, around 3 inches or so there between Baconton and Putney. So kind of tells a story there with some of these different areas of rainfall around. So definitely something to kind of talk about here and make sure people remember, just turn around, don't drown. There's some ponding of the water on the roadway that might get a little out of hand. So we'll just have to monitor that as we look towards some of our northern Florida zones as this action's kind of dipping on down here. You see toward Lake City, Live Oak right now, getting into some of this, McClenny too. I know as we get to Clay County, I've heard some thunder in this dark area, and we have some storminess there toward Orange Park. So I just want to be mindful of that. Southern Putnam, northern parts of Marion there, getting into some storminess too. So just trying to give you a little bit of an overview on the situation here across our region on your Monday. I know we were really busy last week with our tropical cyclone Isaias, and it still has some power outage ramifications as we're looking up toward the northeast. I'll get into those power outage details here in just a moment. I do want to get some other things here loaded on up so we can kind of give you a little bit more perspective on what is happening here. Because I know that's really important to everybody, what is happening in terms of those power outage numbers there, and with a derecho that did impact parts of the Midwest there earlier today, and again still having an impact as we'll go ahead and slide up the map. I know we even have a tornado warning right now in Indiana that's in play. You can see this just popping on the map here in just the last couple seconds toward Elkhart, Noble, Whitley, and even some other counties there as well, like Marshall, getting into this here. You're getting some of this action here southeast of South Bend. We're watching that here. This is northwest of Fort Wayne here as well. Some radar indicated rotations going on up here. You can see some of it is not definitive here, but you can kind of see that popping out a little bit, even on this base reflectivity here that kind of blends things together a little. Trees and power lines down in that area where that rotation is. So something to watch. Severe thunderstorm watch remaining in play, even toward St. Louis. I know I have some viewers there toward that area, and there's even a severe thunderstorm warning there for 60-mile-an-hour winds in the St. Louis area. But earlier things were a lot more dramatic as we got toward Iowa. There was a PDS thunderstorm watch in play there as we look also toward parts of Illinois as well. A very big deal with this extreme damage and wind gusts in toward the Cedar Rapids area there. I'll zoom on in. We were talking about winds to 112 miles an hour. That is almost a Category 3 hurricane strength. So winds to what almost a major hurricane would produce in toward that Cedar Rapids area earlier. So definitely something that was really impactful there. The risk levels honestly kind of had to be shifted pretty late there because things really escalated with the overall setup. The model's still having problems here. They have problems in general handling derechos, but with issues there with the coronavirus, I know it makes it even tougher sometimes because not as much data is being input into those because of planes not flying. As you see another tornado warning just popping up there in Indiana as we're getting a little bit further down here on this line, another area of rotation popping on up there. It looks like this one goes to 7 o'clock. It looks like here as well. So two different areas there of some rotation there, south of South Bend northwest of Fort Wayne there in the state of Indiana. But the damage and wind threat's even the bigger deal with this. You can kind of see this little bow, I guess you could call it, here on the mapping with this. You're seeing this as it dips on down. We'll be watching as we're progressing here. You see that slight risk of severe weather employee as it goes further down. We had a moderate risk. We went from a marginal risk in some areas, really almost no risk at all there, to a moderate risk. A marginal to a moderate is what I'm trying to say there. A 1 out of 5 to a 4 out of 5 in just a matter of hours there with that upgrade having to occur. So you just got to always be paying attention here with the weather scenarios that do evolve. Now, I was alluding to the power outages. We'll go ahead and pop those on now. You'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. Look at all these outages as we're looking across the country. PowerOutage.us is giving out this information here. We'll start off here with the derecho action. Missouri, only about 10,000 right now. That'll probably go up some, but we're looking toward Illinois. Over 500,000 customers in the dark right now. This map really does tell the story there. Northern Illinois really hard hit. Rockford, Chicago, getting into this action here with these very significant wind gusts causing a lot of issues, a lot of damage there in parts of northern Illinois. That really tells the story. And then Iowa was hit very hard as well. You see Nebraska too. They kind of got the beginnings of this derecho, which, by the way, you might be wondering what a derecho is. It's a damaging wind event when you're getting really strong winds for an extended period of time over an extended area there. That's kind of the synopsis. I can go into further details, but as this kind of synopsis here, you're getting a long track wind event. I know back in 2012, they had a very significant one impact the Washington, D.C. area, for instance, and this is another in that line of significant type derecho events here. We've been tracking. You can just see a lot of these counties. I mean, we'll kind of put a mouse over some of them. I mean, almost the entire county without power here. I mean, we're getting towards Cedar Rapids, and you're just seeing all these numbers here. People without power. People are going to be in the dark for a while here in the word Iowa. I can't emphasize that enough with this derecho. Again, it's always important to just have your devices charged up when you hear anything about severe weather whatsoever, maybe being in the future, even if the chances is low. It's just good to have them charged up. Things don't happen like this every day. Normally, things are not this unpredictable, but derechos have a tendency to be very unpredictable and very, very dangerous, unfortunately. As you also see here on the map, you see Georgia. I know that might be catching some of your attention here if you're watching from that region. We'll pop on Georgia. I think some of that's the northern part of the state, and it is. But we have some down toward South Georgia as well, 339 customers in Thomas County, and then just outside of a viewing area in McIntosh County, about 500 or so. Speaking of McIntosh, that Glenn County area, there was a tornado warning in play there yesterday. Not too much coming out of that, but we did cover that tornado warning for Glenn County live as it was happening here on our different platforms. I know that's always important. And one more thing to show you here as we kind of move the mouse around. I know we keep moving it around, but in the Northeast, they're still recovering from Isaias. A week later, there's still some people without power. Connecticut, over 50,000, and they have had some other storms in between, but some of these outages are still for sure from Isaias. That kind of tells the story here. Over 50,000 there in New York as well. We're getting to 72,439. So just trying to give you some perspective there on the power outage information. PowerOutage.us, always a good source. You can just pop that up. That'll give you those latest power outage details. It's always really helpful in these type of situations. So just a lot going on here on that map today. The busiest I've seen it in a while. I mean, of course, with Isaias, we saw it in the Northeast, but getting into a bigger area, I'm talking going from the Midwest to the Northeast, was still noteworthy power outages across that region there, the Northeast, and then, of course, from the derecho today, that long track damage and destructive wind event that still continues as we've been categorizing here and just kind of trying to articulate that to you here over the last little bit. So that's kind of the synopsis on all that. Again, that line's still going, not as significant, but still going to have some spin-up tornadoes we have to watch out for, even as we get toward parts of Ohio here. You have a little bit of a tornado risk as we're getting in toward parts of Ohio, Michigan here as well. So we'll be watching to see how things do continue with this as it does progress. And if you stay tuned, I'll give you a satellite image here of this derecho as well. It really kind of tells the story just how significant of an event this was. So just trying to give you some different things on that, but we want to bring it back to home for the time being. I know a lot of you wanted me to focus on the local area here because that's a little more important to your daily lives. And I know with back to school, for instance, it's always important. Luckily, the rain around Stark, we didn't really see anything this afternoon. We had some rain last night coming on down, but nothing really interfering with those back to school plans today, and that's some good news at least. Now, as we're looking tomorrow, chances of rain even go up a little bit higher, so you have to be aware here exactly how things could go, maybe even a little bit earlier in that time frame as well. So today, though, luckily the back to school plans there in the Ward Stark, for instance, in terms of weather, things went pretty well. So that's the good news. A little warm, but we'll take that as long as we don't have those storms causing some issues there at the bus stop. So now let's go ahead and show you the Union County Emergency Management Camera. We'll give you a little bit of a look outside there, and interesting cloud formations. I know we're looking down toward the south and west, and there is a little bit of a storm trying to slip there in toward Columbia County. But interesting to see some of these clouds here in the distance. Always kind of nice to be able to get a glimpse outside. I know sometimes you get stuck inside. It's always good to be able to get that glimpse outside. The baseball grounds in toward Jacksonville, Duval County. Now you see darker skies, the story there. More storminess around, and then our next stop on this tour will take you over to FSU, the stadium, and kind of give you some perspective there as well. And you can kind of see some cloud cover around, some storm clouds around. Let's just hope there's going to be a good use for that stadium in terms of college football this fall. Just hope it's safe here, and hope it can go there without a hitch, or too much of a hitch at least, as we're looking toward Tallahassee, Florida State. Same for the Gators, of course, and some of the other area schools as we're looking toward University of Georgia, and even Central Florida, South Florida, and over toward the University of Miami as well. Just trying to name some of those there, as we're hoping everything can be done safely with the protocols, and hopefully, again, things will be good enough for those games to take place. So again, let's kind of bring things back over to our home view of the radar imagery, though. You'll be able to see what is happening here. Again, with some of the radar technology that we have, with some of this moisture in play. Now let's go ahead. You're interested in the tropics. It's been kind of quiet. I haven't really talked about that. And luckily, things are pretty quiet. There is a system we're watching, but I'm not too concerned right now. I'm not saying that it won't become something later, but the signs are it's not too big of a threat at this point here. As we look to our tropical weather outlook, you see a 60% chance of formation within 48 hours, but the models generally have this system staying weak, maybe even recurving here in the Atlantic. So we'll watch it. You can't let your guard down. Things are unpredictable, but the models, the reliable models, aren't really hitting too much on this as of last check, so that's some good news. The Euro's not really showing much for this. It has a falling apart, so that's what we like to see here. But as we get later into the season, I was alluding to it on some of the cut-ins here, the hurricane updates there did come out to that overall forecast. Unfortunately, those numbers now suggest we might actually, as we look at your name list, the numbers might actually surpass the number of names we use in a typical season for that season, or at least reserved. And as we're looking there, we might have to get into the Greek alphabet, which we only did one other time, and that was in 2005, the year we had Katrina. It doesn't mean we're going to have a storm like that, though, this year, but it's just indicative of how busy the season could be, and it's more about how many chances you have versus how many storms, because when you have more chances to be hit, more people generally are hit. I mean, you could have a season to some extent, though we've already had a couple hurricanes, Cat 1s, with, of course, Hannah and Isaias make landfall. In 2010, we had a bunch of storms, but they recurved mainly in the Atlantic, so maybe we'll get a pattern like that set up, but right now, it looks more like a pattern having favorable for the southeast to be impacted. Just don't know too much there. We're going kind of far in the models, and things can change rapidly with hurricane model forecasting and overall setups here. But right now, it's just important to have that hurricane plan up to date, because things right now trend in that direction of an active period here toward the southeast. We'll be watching, and we'll be giving you the latest information, of course, here in the Weather Center. Real quick, let's see your radar scope as we kind of bring things back to home one more time. I know this is always important for everybody at home to kind of get this viewpoint of what the radar is showing. As you can see Lake City there, getting in some of this Axon, Live Oak, out toward Quincy, Bainbridge. We're looking at Moody Air Force Base. I know the Jacksonville radar is down right now. Some storms in Jacksonville. We're just going to have to watch to see how things evolve. Could get more warnings. I know I haven't been cutting in for many warnings here lately. That's because a lot of them have been more downburst type signatures, more isolated areas here. Even if they're in a populated region, by the time you issue the warning, by the time you come on, the threat's starting to wind down a little bit. But we did have a couple situations we had to come on for that tornado warning yesterday, and then that damaging wind threat around Kingsland was really showing up more definitively, more of a bigger area being covered by that. So it's always interesting to watch the radar here. Right now, as I I'll pull up velocity mode real quick. We'll show you what's happening as we get down to Lake City. You see some wind energy there as we're looking along US 90 as we're getting in that general vicinity there. I-10, you're getting into some of these gustier winds, but nothing severe at the moment. We did have a bit of gusty wind action down toward Keystone earlier, but again, nothing too significant, and that's the good news. Excuse me. Now, as we go ahead and pop me back on camera, you'll be able to see our name list again. We're hoping we don't go down as far on this list as it looks like we will, but speaking of the storms in general, I mean, we had apparent derecho there in toward parts of Iowa, and this is what it looked like this afternoon on the infrared satellite imagery. I mean, you don't see an eye per se, but you see those thunderstorms just really definitive there. I know, I took this shot here from right around when Cedar Rapids, where they had the gusts to 112 miles an hour, right around when that was occurring. You can really see that accent right around there. Some other storms to the south, but you can just really see, if you didn't know any better, you think this was a tropical type system with just the way the clouds are here. You don't actually see, of course, the area there where you're getting like an eye or something like that to pop out, but just with that massive clouds there, kind of tells the story, and that moved into Chicago causing issues, power outages, like we were alluding to there. So big deal in the that region. Always important to touch on some of the national weather stories to an extent here. And now as we bring things back to home for the look at that extended outlook, you see those heat index values still a factor here as we are getting later on in the week. Those rain chances, though, could dampen some of those plans that you might have with those temperatures, with those overall scenarios that are occurring. You just have to be cautious here because with that heat index being up, now you'll have some of those storms here around as well with that heat energy overall, not necessarily from the heat index per se, but with those showers, with those storms, you're going to have to deal with those plans being impacted by that heat first off, and then with those storms, those lightning areas, lightning clusters, that thunder coming on in. So when thunder roars, you want to go indoors, of course, and we'll be here if we need to be on for some severe weather. We'll be posting about it as necessary as well, especially on Facebook for the Jacksonville area, Twitter for the Tallahassee counties, and then as we get toward Tallahassee, Valdosta, you see the rain chances about the same. The temperatures in the morning maybe a little warmer just with the overall scenario here, but you kind of get the idea. It's going to be kind of a stormy period overall, so make sure you have that umbrella. Make sure when thunder roars, you want to go indoors. It's really important because a lot of times when you have rain this time of year, you don't want to be outside even with that umbrella because it's just too dangerous with the storms around. So just be cautious. We'll be here to tell you the latest if there's some severe weather. I think that pretty much does it, though, for the time being. We're talking about those power outages, of course, which are very important to talk about there. Also, just, of course, have your multiple ways to get those alerts here as we are looking for those severe thunderstorm warnings maybe popping on up as we're looking ahead. I would have to see exactly how things go with that potential, but I think that pretty much does it for now. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. I hope you have a great night, and I'll be back exclusively tomorrow on Twitter with your normal update.